All right. I think it's going to be working this week, thankfully. The gods of tech have smiled upon me today after an aborted attempt a couple weeks ago with Mark Schaefer to do a live stream. I think this is going out correctly. I'll certainly find out after talking with Mark for about an hour, but that's neither here nor there because we're not here to talk about my tech problems or even how I'm feeling today. We're here to talk to the wonderful Mark Schaefer, who, if you've been a longtime listener to the Nonfiction Brand podcast, you've heard him at least 4 times, 2 consecutive episodes, 2 specific times in the past. In fact, I think your first time on was November of 2020, which predates COVID and everything else, I think, episode 64 and 65. So definitely check that out. But here's the man, the myth, the legend, and the author of a brand new book, Mark Schaefer. Thanks for being on the Nonfiction Brand podcast, man.
Good. Well, I guess I'm a myth to some people. Who knows? We can explore that further, perhaps.
Well, no, you truly are. I mean, I've had the pleasure of seeing you speak a couple of times, and every time I see you on stage and hear your content and what you're sharing, I go, well, that's a big duh, except it's a completely new duh. I mean, you do what all good people who are really artists at what they do. They make the incredibly difficult to come about seem effortless. Your ideas and your point of view, certainly it puts into words a lot of the things that I've been thinking for a long time. And so I guess part of it is confirmation bias, the fact that it comes out of your mouth and I've been thinking it. Yay, we're on the same team. But I think one of the things I love about what you do is you bring in ideas that are not hardcore contrarian, but they're definitely in response to perhaps the mainstream thinking of things. For example, your new book, Belonging to the Brand, Why Community is the Last Great Marketing Strategy. That's funny, because all I hear about it is marketing is all about AI, and it's about using AI to leverage our puny carbon-based brains to create micro messages to audiences all over the world that are fragmented in digital space. And personally, between you and me, I just want to vomit. Yeah. Your book literally was tonic to my soul. And I'm going to stop talking, but I just want to kind of set it up for you. Yeah. And it starts with your dedication to the book. It starts with your dedication of the book, which reads, you pick up a book, start with the dedication, and find that once again, the author has dedicated a book to someone else and not to you. Not this time. Just because we haven't met yet doesn't mean we won't in a community someday. It might be just the best thing ever. So this is for you, my future best friend. That's kind of an interesting dedication. What made you write those words and put them at the very beginning of your brand new book?
Well, I think it's very sad, implying that I don't have a best friend yet.
There is that, but I wasn't going to bring that up.
Well, I mean, look, this is my 10th book, and I've had lots of opportunities to dedicate my books to people that I love and people who I admire. And I just thought, this is a book about community and the bond of community. And the dedication is sort of unusual, but it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. I have a community. We're in, kind of like year 2. And I've met more people and created more friendships in the last 2 years than probably the last 20 through this community, because we're collaborating, we're connecting. And the idea behind the book is, wow, what if you could do that with a company? What if you could do that with a brand? And I'm here to tell you, you can. And maybe you should.
Well, yeah. And you kind of really make that clear in the first couple of pages of the book, because you literally have a little section in here called Connecting the Trends. This, and I'm going to add a little preamble to this, saying that this book is based on connecting those trends. Those trends being, one, deteriorating effectiveness of traditional marketing. Yeah, I think we can all agree that's happening, right? Two, exploding levels of mental health problems. Holy cow, you are not wrong about that, my friend. And then three, transformational technological developments on Web3 and the multiverse that will help people gather. So that third one kind of interests me because the dystopian thinker might look at the developments of Web 3 or Web 3.0, depending on who you're talking to, as kind of this coming apocalypse, kind of fragmentation of society. And so we're in this metaverse of, Ready Player One strangeness. Or it could be an incredible way to unite people in their kind of micro tribes all around the world. No matter where you are or what time zone you're in, you get to find the people who are similar to you in terms of thinking or desires or passions and interests. And so I'm getting that you're looking at this as both a challenge and an opportunity at the same time. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, I vote for the more optimistic view, and it's already happening. Um, Not just with young people, but even like people like me. I hate when that people call me seasoned, but I've got the gray hair to prove it, I suppose. So I'll give you an example that one of the things that we do in my community, we're dedicated to looking at the future of marketing, to discern the future of marketing, and to help each other be relevant in our careers. And we do experiments in the metaverse, and there are people there from all over the world, Australia, Europe, Asia, and we all meet in the metaverse, and we all have our characters. They basically look like us, and we start off each like little party we have with a dance. We like dance, and we're learning how to move. And a few weeks ago, we had an art show. People created, AI generative art, and we displayed it on the walls. We learned how to vote in the metaverse. And then at the end of that event, we were in a hot tub. It was a digital fake hot tub overlooking these beautiful snowy mountains. It was wintertime, even in the metaverse, and the sun, the fake sun, was setting over our fake hot tub. And I was in this hot tub with our digital clothes on, with people from Ireland and Belgium and Australia and Italy, and it was glorious. It was so much fun. And how could you ever do something like that with people from all over the world? And we were talking and laughing and sharing stories. And people took pictures of that, of us sitting in the hot tub with this beautiful sunset, and shared it all over the web because it was such a profound moment. And so when you cut through all the hype and you cut through all the complex jargon of Web3 and NFTs, tokenized economies, and the metaverse, millions and millions of dollars are being spent to help us gather in new and important ways. So, I mean, I think that's the key idea and how it can help community.
Yeah, that whole idea of those technologies existing for connection as a primary directive of those technologies, I think is huge and misunderstood by a lot of people because we're used to the broadcast model, which is that New York, DC, Chicago, and Los Angeles broadcast out how we should be thinking. And, some of us are old enough to remember 3 networks only and maybe a couple of UHF sessions or stations. And that's entirely changed, so much so that you can eat only the hamburger you want to eat on broadcast stations or cable stations to your detriment. And we certainly have seen that in action. And I want to talk about a concept in the book that you start out with in chapter 1. You talk about the loneliest generation. What do you mean by the loneliest generation? Are you talking about your generation, or is it the girls who are growing up on Instagram? What is it?
Well, in a way, it's a metaphor for all of that. But specifically, one of the things that prompted me to write this book was the headline I saw in the New York Times that said "The Loneliest Generation," and it had lots of data and research and statistics showing how our children, our teenagers, are suffering like no other generation through record levels of isolation, disconnection, depression, even self harm. And I mean, it's so different than any other generation. It's not even close. And this was not caused by the pandemic, although that accelerated it. It was not caused by children spending too much time on screens and social media, although that can be part of it. It's a complex problem that has been creeping up on us for decades. It does affect every generation to some extent, um, uh, and there's just an increased amount of isolation in the world. Part of that uh, comes from the collapse of many social institutions that used to be our homeroom for belonging, like churches, like civil and social clubs, like the Lions Club or the Rotary Club, something like that. Even youth sports in many places is in decline. A lot of leagues were canceled during the pandemic, and kids went online to play esports and never came back. So it's a complex cocktail. But one of the solutions, and I'm not being Pollyannish, I'm not saying start a community and change the world, but we need community. We just simply need it. It's not that we want it. We must have community to be a really fully formed, fully functioning, psychologically, sociologically healthy person, even physically healthy person. And so this is an interesting concept in the book that, this is a business book. It talks about community through the perspective of brand marketing, as far as I know, for the first time. It provides an unassailable business case for viewing community as a brand marketing strategy. But one of the side benefits is it's not only a marketing strategy that works, it's a marketing strategy that heals. And I think that's really interesting as a marketing professional.
Well, I think you're exactly right because we've always had brand communities that have existed. All you have to do is look at 50 Harleys going down the highway next to you, and you look at the people and go, "Oh yeah, there's my accountant, there's my lawyer," and they're all
Right,
part of a Harley group. So they
right,
found a tribe that they belong to, and they've selected. There, other people are brand loyal to the point where they get tattoos and things like that of those brands. But I think you're
right.
talking about something entirely differently, or entirely different, which is that brands and branded organizations, companies, even products and services need to start looking at building communities of not just fans, but family. Is that right?
Well, sort of. So, I mean, one of the things that I point out in the book, and I think this is an important point of differentiation that people have found very helpful, is that there's this emotional continuum in marketing. I mean, we used to build our brands on advertising, which we don't really see anymore. Most companies are very active in social media, but those are relatively weak relational links. If we say, "Hey, everybody, buy our product" on Twitter, it's there's no commitment there. It's ephemeral. It's like throwing a message in the bottle, into an ocean, the LinkedIn ocean or the Facebook ocean or the YouTube ocean or wherever. So the real strategy is to connect with new people on social media and bring them into your audience, which is a subscription to your content, just like your show or my blog, or perhaps a video series or a podcast or something like that. Now that creates a much stronger emotional connection. If I go to my blog and say, "Hey everybody, I have a new book out," lots of people will buy it, and that's good. That's an audience. It's the same as what Seth Godin wrote about in his book about tribes. That book's got to be at least 12 or 13 years old now, right? What Seth was really talking about was an audience. Now, this is where most businesses stop. They don't then move their audience to a community, which is different. And it's the strongest emotional connection, the ultimate emotional connection. And a community is different from an audience in three ways. Number one, there's communion. The people in the community know each other. The bond they have with friends they have in the community is just as important or more important than the bond they have with the brand. And it creates a layer of emotional switching costs between you and the competitors, because if they leave you, they leave their friends, and they don't want to do that. So literally they belong to the brand. Number two, it has to be centered around a reason to gather. This is different than a mission statement or a point of marketing differentiation. This is a purpose, a belief, a value, where your purpose for being aligns with the interests and values of your customers, and you figure we can do whatever we want to do together better together than if we were alone. That is a powerful reason to gather. And then the third point is that it evolves, is that the community evolves, it changes. It's not based in some mission statement carved in stone, and that's the power, the real power, the magnificent power of communities, is that a brand is a never ending journey of relevance. And if you let your community take you where the world is going, that helps you stay relevant. So that's the difference between, social media, an audience, and a community, and how they're connected.
Oh man, you are hitting me right in the head because let me share with you a story. Way back when word of mouth marketing was kind of the WOM, was really getting attention. I'm of course doing my research on that stuff, and I came across a website for the brand Fiskars, the guy, the orange scissors guys,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I know that case study very, very well.
Yeah, the Fiskateers
Years.
was.
I used to teach that case study in my yeah. Thanks for reminding me of that. That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, because I'm trying to figure out, what is this word of mouth marketing? Is this just a new buzzword for repackaged best practices that people have always been doing?
Yeah.
And I went on Fiskateers.com. I don't even know if it still exists, but
Doesn't.
yeah, it's too bad because it was a brilliant premise.
Yeah, Fisker's got it was one of the most brilliant marketing strategies ever.
Yeah.
And the guy who started that was Gino Church, and Gino was absolutely brilliant. He's still around. But I mean, creating a community of people who love scissors
Yeah.
is incredible. Now, but you bring up a really interesting point, and it's grounded in this that in the world today, we don't believe ads and
Yeah.
we don't believe marketing messaging, but we do believe each other. I mean, word of mouth marketing is more important than ever. And this is the beauty of community, because someone in my audience might buy my book, but someone in my community, first of all, everyone in my community, everyone is going to buy the book. They're not just going to buy the book. They're going to promote the book. They're going to share the book. They're going to buy extra books and give it to their friends, because that's what a community does. We're like a neighborhood trying to help each other and support each other. Now, there's this incredible things that happen. I mentioned this hot tub thing, right? We're in the metaverse and we're doing this hot tub, and people. It was just such a profound moment. People took a picture of that and shared it all over the internet. And here's what happened. People said, Mark, this was amazing. I feel like I'm missing out. How do I join your community? How do I get involved in this? That, my friend, is word of mouth marketing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so the community can be the real uh, petri dish of that. Maybe, that's kind of an ugly word, kind of associated with
Well,
viruses.
it's your
But it,
beta test. It's part
yeah,
beta test group. It's part
that's,
leading
yeah,
indicator, leading economic indicator, and
right.
it's also a thermometer and barometer at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When I was on that Fisketeers.com site, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. They're talking because Fisketeers.com was basically a community that had several Fisketeers who
Yep,
were paid community managers
right.
for scrapbookers who
That's right.
used Fiskar's products, Fiskar's
Yep.
scissors, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, that's really smart. That's really, really cool. I go a little deeper into their kind of old chat boards, their kind of groups where people could get together and talk. They weren't talking about scissors. They were talking about Gloria's going to have a baby in March. I'm
Yeah.
starting a pool on the gender, the weight,
Oh,
and what good names would be, who's
yeah.
in. And then
Right.
50 different women and some men from around the world chimed in to participate on something that had nothing to do with scissors, that had
Hmm.
nothing to do with Fiskars, but had
Hmm.
everything to do with the community Fiskars created.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
blew my mind. And
Yeah.
I saw the power of that instantly. And I'll be honest with you, Mark, I have tried to sell that idea to a couple of different people I work with several times, and they will not buy it because they
Why-
can't understand it.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Well,
I
I
have my guess.
think, um, I think part of it is operational. Like, well, how much does that cost? Do we have to hire new people to do this? How blah 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 blah. Oh, legal liability. What if someone posts something that starts a flame war? Everything. All the reasons that good marketers shoot down great ideas.
Yeah.
Let's face it. Risk is involved in what you're doing, what you're talking about doing, which is creating community. Because once you create that community, you are the sheriff in
Mm.
that community. And you have to
Mm.
make sure that, and most people, if they get into past the kind of filters to get into your community, they're probably quality people. But
Yeah.
you can't be absent from that community yourself. You have to be an active participant and, dare I say, benevolent father in your case, or benevolent mother if you're a female,
Mm.
so that even if you're having the party and you're telling everyone to bring their own beer and their own meat, and I've got the grill and I've got some music on, you still have to make sure that Uncle Weirdo doesn't get too drunk and start hitting on somebody else's wife or whatever. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of risk there. But what I'm hearing you say is if you aren't willing to take that risk moving forward and you're relying on old techniques, you're dead in the water.
Well, I think it's just this simple. Is like, um, I've been in marketing more than 40 years. I can say with some authority, this is by far the hardest time to be in marketing. To How are you going to rise above the noise? And it's just going to get worse with AI and Chat GPT pumping out content, all day long. It never gets tired. It never gets sick. It never goes on strike. And the world is just going to be even filled with even more noise. It's going to be more difficult, more expensive to compete. And we already talked about ads don't work. They're being blocked, they're being dismissed, and they're not believed. So we got to find something new. What the heck are you going to do now? Community is hard. It's not fast. It's not easy. But all marketing is hard. Why not try something that works? And look, this is unfamiliar. It may not fit on your marketing dashboard. It might not be as easy to measure as some of the other things that you do. But this, I mean, let me tell you something, my friend. I saw a newsletter uh, from it's a Gen Z agency that creates this Gen Z trends newsletter, and the newsletter this week was all about community. It was almost like they were reading a script from my book. Literally, it was unbelievable. Saying we're lonely, we're disconnected, we're isolated. We have got to have community. Who's going to do it for us? So it's like you've got a choice. Sometimes you got to move into something different. You got to put down your algorithms. You got to put down your email automation. You got to forget about your Facebook ads for a minute and just reassess. What are you doing? What are the options? Are you keeping pace with the culture? We've got your customers. We've got this young generation that are longing to belong. They're crying out for connection and help. Now, someone in your industry is going to create a community. And when they do, just like Fiskars, there's not going to be a second scissors community. There just isn't. There's going to be one big badass scissors community, and it's going to be dominant. I hope it's you. I hope it's whoever's listening today. You sometimes you need you can't always keep up with the pulse of culture and measure. Sometimes you got to move fast, try something new, take a risk to keep up with the pulse of culture and figure out the measurement down the road.
Oh, you are so right. And let me tell you, I'm so glad that I'm going back to 2 consecutive weeks with the same guest format because I want to plumb your mind even deeper. And I want to just give a little teaser for next week's episode. We're going to be talking about a pronouncement you make in the book that stipulates that a brand community is a business strategy, not just a marketing strategy. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty provocative statement, and I want to go deeper into that. But for now, I've got to end this episode of the Nonfiction Brand podcast. I want to thank so much my guest, Mark Schaefer, for being on. And as always, I'm your host with the not-so-most DP Knudten, and he is...
Mark Schaefer.
And I'll be talking at you again next week. Bye-bye. Pause, pause, pause. So we last left our hero out there making a big, what I considered to be a pretty big pronouncement, which is a brand community is a business strategy, not just a marketing strategy. I like this idea because what you're talking about is a big, hairy idea. Consequently, it deserves not just the marketing department's attention. It deserves the CEO, the COO, whoever, all the major stakeholders and owners of the business. They need to be involved at least at an understanding level, if not a daily active user within this community in order to make it work. And you asked me last week why I thought a couple of my attempts to sell in such a program at some of the places worked, why it didn't actually go anywhere. And I think that's the problem right there, which is this, perhaps because I didn't have the words, they looked at it as a marketing strategy, not as a business strategy. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, that's just such a great question. And 70% of brand communities fail. So let's start there. And the main reason they fail is because the community is not aligned with the business culture, the culture of the business. So if you have a business that is always be selling, always be closing, that's probably not going to be the right culture for a community. That's not a reason to gather, that you're going to be plucking people's wallets and their money every time they visit. So it's got to be a higher level, idea. So, um, so culture is incredibly important. On the last show, you mentioned Harley Davidson as an example of that. And I actually used to work with Harley Davidson, and I saw this in action. That at the time, the person running the company, I believe, was the grandson of either Harley or Davidson. I can't remember, but here is the person running the company, and he knows that everything they do, every everything they do, has to support this idea of the community. I'll give you an example. I was in the metals business at that time, and I had R&D reporting to me, and we came up with this aluminum that had this coating on it that resisted dirt. That would be perfect for a motorcycle. You're going through all these muddy roads. This thing literally like rejects the mud and the grease and keeps your bike clean. We presented this to Harley Davidson. They hated it because Mr. I don't know, I think it was Mr. Davidson said, "You don't understand. The people the people in our community, that's how they interact with their product, with the bike. They love to polish it. They love to clean it. We can't take that away from them. That is a source of pride." I mean, even the sound of the thing is very fine tuned to say the person riding this bike is a badass. So from the top of the bottom company to the bottom of the company, they understand that emotional connection to the product, which is everything to a company, is in the community, and they can't do anything that would sort of breach that trust with the community.
Well, one of the things that really hammer home the idea that building a community or belonging to the brand, building that community is a business strategy. Uh, I, I can't help but think that it really has to do with the fact that people, again, they want to belong. We are, we are pack animals. Even a lone wolf, I love to say this, even a lone wolf is part of a greater pack. Yeah, they may not see the whole pack all the time, but, there's still a longing to have that connection. But that idea that the community is actually a test bed, a beta center for any ideas you have. So, for instance, if you're trying to sell the oil and mud shedding metal,
Mm.
normally a marketing department would go to a test focus group or something like that, and you get some people in the room, and then no one says anything until the person with the biggest mouth and the highest opinion of themselves says something, and everybody lines up to agree with them. Yes, I hate focus groups. But I will say I love communities because communities are where the things bubble up.
Yeah.
And you may know this story better than I, so feel free to hop in. But I am reminded of Cheetos Flaming Hot, snack foods, right? Flaming Hot Cheetos. Okay, I'm in the Midwest. Flaming Hot, we don't do that by naturally. However, one of the employees at Cheetos did. I believe he was a Mexican American who brought, and he may have even been in the maintenance department. And he said, "Hey, listen, our culture loves these flavor profiles that have some real kick and heat to them. Why
Mm.
don't we do some of those?"
Mm.
So that's an idea that they didn't have an official community, but every business does have a community in the fact that they have people working for you. A lot of people would have said, "Hey, great idea. Why don't you go back to your job and we'll let R&D take care of it." Instead, somebody listened to that community member and came up with a new product SKU that is selling like crazy and also leads to brand extensions all over the place.
Yeah,
So,
there's lots of examples like that. I mean, that's really going on. Here's the way, DP. If you want to find good communities, you can generally look at what are the best managed companies in the world. I find that the best managed companies usually do everything right. and those are the ones that are really innovating with community as well. One of the great examples in the book is actually, I didn't mention this in the book. This, I think I learned this after I wrote the book. Um, Lego has a new product out that is competing with jigsaw puzzles. So, like maybe over a holiday, you might get out a jigsaw puzzle and your family, does a little bit at a time. And someone in Lego's community had the idea, why couldn't we create sort of a Lego puzzle to do that? So they've created like baskets of flowers and baskets of succulents, more sort of adult ideas that the whole family can work on, and get it done in a reasonable time frame, over a holiday. In my community, this is a little example that I just love. So when ChatGPT was first coming out, I was an early adopter and I was really interested in this. And a lot of people in my community were bubbling and buzzing about it, and they had all these ideas. And I said, look, over the weekend, I'm going to create a blog post, and you're doing all these interesting things with ChatGPT. I want to write a blog post about non-obvious uses of ChatGPT. If you give me a good one, I'll put it in my blog post and I'll link to you. So we built this little product together. And DP, I've been blogging since 2009. I've never done a blog post like that was created by a community because I never had a community before. That was my most successful blog post ever. It was viewed 500,000 times.
Mm.
It was bigger, it was better than anything I could have done on my own. Now just think about scaling that to a brand with hundreds or maybe even thousands of members. Sephora, big skincare cosmetics company, they've got stores. Almost every significant city in the world probably has a Sephora store, but 80% of their revenue, even with all those stores, 80% of the revenue comes from their community with 6 million members in it. Can you imagine how many conversations they're having, how many ideas they're getting? What an advantage that is going to be over any competitor.
Yeah, well, especially when it comes to areas like fashion or cosmetics and things like that. Color trends, you get it from the community. New
Yeah.
needs and desires, you get it from the community. You get all this, what I would call leading economic indicators. They exist in that community, and you
Yeah.
can have visibility to it if you have the community.
But even in my little business, I mean, today, every piece of content I create, every speech I give, somewhere in there is embedded an idea that came out of my community, because there are people they're all over the world and they're seeing things and experiencing things and commenting on things. I would never have the opportunity to experience those things, and they're bringing them to me. They're bringing them into this community, and it's just made me a better business leader. It's made me a better teacher. It's made me a more relevant marketer, and that's the superpower of communities.
Does it require a certain self-awareness or humility to embrace something like this? Because a lot of people like to say, I know, well, they may not say it overtly, but
Mhm.
by the way they do things, they say very clearly, I am the expert. I know, I am infallible. And instead, you're saying, I don't know everything. I would love to hear from you. I would love to listen to you. I would love to see things through your eyes. I There's almost a humble brand quotient to what you're talking about.
Yeah, this is a very keen insight you're making here, and it's something I'm still learning about. And I think there is a certain humility that goes with leading a community. There's also um, certain aspects of leading a community that are not intuitive, that are different than what we learned at the university. This idea of like giving up power, and not creating an organization, but elevating volunteers in the community. And boy, what a learning experience it's been for me. It's like, in my community, we have lots of different projects going on where, we started a podcast, and we do these metaverse experiments, and these are all being led by people other than me. And one of the things I'm learning, because I'm seen as an authority figure by many people, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm not going to escape that. But in the community, my job is to encourage discussions, encourage engagement, create a safe environment. And something I've been struggling with is, like, if I get involved in a discussion or debate and maybe I disagree with someone, is that shutting down a discussion? Could that be um, maybe just putting a chink in the armor of someone who's maybe a little vulnerable today, and they're feeling less safe in the community? I mean, these are weird things to think about as a leader, as a business leader, as a marketing professional. But that's what you have to think about in this community. My job is not to be the smartest person in the room. My job is to create a safe, nurturing environment where people feel validated, where they feel heard, and where they feel like they belong. That's my number one job.
Well, and I agree with you. And you hit on something about leadership that I think a lot of people maybe don't understand or really appreciate. And that is that leaders don't go off in their direction and say, follow me. They're actually just a few steps in front of who they're leading, and they are listening, and they are making sure no one's left behind, and they're part guide, but part someone who pays attention to all the variables that can affect the community. And here, what you were talking about reminded me of a story I once heard. I like folk music, okay? Modern singer-songwriter, stuff like that. I once heard one of the people that I really like talk about being on stage at a folk festival, and they always do a final song of the night where everybody who performed during the entire festival gets on stage, and they sing something like "Will the Circle Be Unbroken," and everyone takes a verse or maybe does a guitar solo or something. There's always one person who's leading it. And in this case, this female singer-songwriter I'm thinking of said that she had the opportunity to be on stage with Pete Seeger, the one of the old folk stars from the original even
Yeah.
pre-folk days
Yeah.
in Greenwich Village. And guess what? You got a stage full of egos. Pete said, "Let's do this," and everyone said, "Okay," because he had such respect and
Yeah.
such veneration almost.
Sure.
And everyone recognized that, okay, well, he knows what to do. He's been around. He's got the bona fides.
Yeah.
Everyone followed the lead. That's the
Mm,
key.
mm,
Leaders have to understand the
mm.
people following get to vote. And if they don't get to vote, they're going to leave. And
Yeah.
that's the huge thing. I mean, yeah, the bottom line is by being a humble brand or even a humble leader,
Mhm.
you get so much more out of it. I can only guess how many new books worth of material you are gathering on a meeting by meeting basis, and they don't even know it.
Yeah. Oh, they know it.
Yeah, right.
But we help each other. I mean, we really do. I mean, when people are struggling with anything, they ask for help, and generally, generally they get it. And so we're lifting each other up. And I mean, my goal, I think the goal of any leader is to fade into the background, to become just, a community member. That's what I would love to accomplish, because when I do that, then it's no longer a cult of personality. It's my legacy. It's going to
Yeah.
be something that is sustained and will go on longer than me, and that's something I can be very proud of. And it's already happening. It's happening really quickly because we have so many people in the community who are really smart and are really respected, I can be humble around because they know a lot more about what they're talking about than I do, and I can demonstrate that leadership too.
Yeah, well, I want to let you lead on this, which is right from the book. You say social sharing, the most important metric. Now, a lot of people who are looking at Instagram influencers and stuff like that, they'll say, "Oh yeah, Instagram influencers, they want their stuff shared and stuff like that." You're not talking about that, or not that exclusively. You're
Yeah.
talking about that in comparison to perhaps other metrics. And so I'd love for you to unpack that or illuminate that idea again. Social sharing, the most important metric. What do you mean?
Well, measurement and community, it's hard, and that is what really creates the most angst, I think, with community professionals. Over 90% of community professionals said that their community is creating value for the company. Only 10% said that they could measure it. That's a problem. So I do have a chapter in my new book, Belonging to the Brand, that I think is one of the best contributions to the idea of community, and it's about measurement, but looking at it through the lens of brand marketing. And I start with a big discussion of what's the difference between brand marketing, which is almost impossible to measure, and transactional marketing, like coupons and ads, which is relatively easy to measure. If you're going to get the true emotional firepower, the collaboration, the co-creation, the brand advocacy, sorry, that's brand marketing. That's less easy to measure. So let's start there. Now, what can you measure? I mentioned Sephora. All right, 6 million people in their community, 80% of their revenue coming through their community. What's their number one measure? Engagement. You and I have been around long enough to really sort of roll our eyes when it comes to engagement, right? It's a fluffy measure in social media, it's like a vanity measure. I have been highly critical of engagement as a measure when it comes to social media. It can be gamed. There's almost no connection with engagement and ROI. You can engage yourself broke if all you do is engage and it's not doing anything to move the needle. What the heck are you doing? However, in community, let's go back to Sephora as an example. Their number one measure is engagement because that is a leading indicator to sales. If people are engaging in the community, it shows they're relevant. The content is relevant. The discussions are relevant. The products that they're introducing into the community are relevant. It's creating engagement and conversation. This is one of the biggest, most successful communities in the world, and engagement is their major measurement. Now, let's talk about social sharing. I mentioned this example of people were taking screenshots of this metaverse experiment we had in my community, where we ended a little get together, sitting in a fake hot tub on a fake ski slope. But we were there with people from all over the world, and it was beautiful, and it was sublime, and it was fun. And people took that picture and shared it all over social media. Guess what? That is organic advocacy. That is more powerful, more valuable than any ad you could ever take out. Because I'm going to believe my friend on social media that said, I just had the most amazing time in this Rise community. Oh my gosh, I am learning so much. Look what I did today. I sat in this hot tub and we talked with people from all over the world. That's what I mean by social sharing, organic advocacy. When you do something in a community that is so meaningful, so compelling, so unmissable that people can't wait to talk about it outside the community, that's gold. that's the best marketing you could ever wish for.
Well, let me share with you a story from storm-laden Wisconsin, which can be a challenge. We have hailstorms occasionally. Hailstorms come through, hit our roofs, and can, cause significant damage. And then the guys who are selling new roofs come through the neighborhood trying to sell you on a new roof. My answer to that is I open the door and say, thanks, no thanks, shut the door, see you later. One of my neighbors gets a new roof on. We see them, what they're doing. We see how they take care of that neighbor's lawn, even while they're bringing on these big pallets of shingles and stuff. And we go, oh, those guys are pretty good. Then we talk to our neighbors. All of a sudden, we're calling those guys because we trust them. They've demonstrated who they are, what they do, and how they do it, which is one of the tenets of what I call nonfiction branding. And they've got a unpaid sales team member in the form of my neighbor. And they'll tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, and consequently, guess what? We got a new roof. The same guy who roofed our neighbor's roof.
I mean, it's a great case study. And, I think, I know you and I are of the same mindset that really, today the successful marketing mindset is not about telling people how great you are. It's about getting other people to tell other people how great you are. The customer is the marketer. We don't believe ads. We don't believe marketing messaging, but we do believe each other, our friends, our neighbors, fellow professionals. We believe business leaders. We believe technical experts. We believe entrepreneurs. So, increasingly, that kind of starts another topic, but increasingly, the personal brand is the brand. That's who we want to see. That's who we believe. And everybody can be an influencer. Just in your case, it was your neighbor, because you're going to believe them before anybody knocking on your door.
Well, and that's so true. Everybody is already an influencer. They may not be a Kardashian, but they are an influencer within their community. All you have to do is someone see your shoes and go, oh, I saw those. Are those comfortable? And then all of a sudden you're an influencer. Or the car you drive. Or, how many times has one neighbor gotten a new car and all of a sudden 4 other neighbors all in the block get new cars because they're inspired, or maybe they got more information from that neighbor themselves. Mm-hmm. And that word of mouth power goes crazy when you have a community. And that's what you're talking about. By the way, if you're watching the live stream, the book, you can see the book over Mark's shoulder. You can also see it in my hand right here. You can also see...
I like that one better because of all the Post-it notes.
Yeah, well, I always go through, before I talk to Mark, I go through his books and I find the stuff that makes me go, aha, or, oh yeah, mm-hmm. If I grunt kind of in a Neanderthal way, that gets a Post-it note, and then we talk about it during the podcast. Because let me tell you, I'm a jaded son of a gun when it comes to marketing and stuff like that. Yeah. I am so sick and tired of the typical garden variety conventional wisdom that's out there about all this stuff. So when I come across something new, something interesting, and something I think is valuable, I'm going to use my word of mouth and start spreading it around. And that's why I'm so happy to tell you about Belonging to the Brand, Mark Schaefer's new book. Again, the full title is Belonging to the Brand, Why Community is the Last Great Marketing Strategy. And I will attest firsthand to its quality, especially for those people who are like, I'm not so sure. Because one of the things I like about your books is they're compelling, and they are generally convincing as well. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can't do all of it, but if you can start thinking about, you know what, we need to stop thinking them as clients. We need to start thinking them about or as members of our community, especially B2B. My God, B2B clients, they are your community. Embrace them and learn from them and get that early leading economic indicator information, the barometer and temperature from your community by having a community. So smart. Check out Belonging to the Brand, available. Where can you get the book?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. You can get it in paper, hardback, ebook, and an audiobook narrated by me.
There you go. And in the past, I know you've done signed copies via your website. Do you still do
Yeah,
that?
I do. I do. Yep. I sent out a couple today, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, that's really neat. And by the way, thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for actually reading my book and being so well prepared with the interview. That really makes it a joy, as always. And I've learned from you today. You've helped me connect some dots I hadn't thought about before. So I really enjoyed the conversation. And
Oh, thank
thanks so
you.
much. Yeah, thank you so much. Great job.
Well, thank you. And let me tell you, doing a podcast like this is not easy. I mean, let's face it, I'm just coming off an extended hiatus, frankly, because I was tired. I
Mm.
was just tired. And then your book came out and you sent me a copy, and I'm like, okay, I'm not tired anymore. There's interesting stuff here. I want to share it. And
Mm.
so I'm delighted to tell the Nonfiction Brand podcast audience that I'm back and I'm talking to more highly curated people, meaning I'm talking to Mark Schaefer. Read his books, especially belonging to the brand. You will not be disappointed. It will definitely get you thinking. I'm also going to be starting a sub series that I'm calling the TikTok sessions, where I talk to people I've found on TikTok who are actually doing everything I talk about when building a personal brand by demonstrating who they are, what they do, and how they do it in such fun, compelling, and interesting ways that your mind will be blown. My first guest on that series is going to be Dan McClellan, who, if you're like me, I don't know how he got on my TikTok feed, but this PhD biblical scholar who does takedowns of people who are misreading the Bible of all things, he has created a place for himself in academia that I want to learn a whole lot more about. It will not be a boring conversation, I guarantee you, because I'm a pastor's kid, now agnostic, going to be talking to a Mormon PhD who is into biblical studies. Yeah, it's going to be a cage match, but in a really fun, respectful way. So definitely check that out. Coming up on the Nonfiction Brand podcast, watch for the TikTok sessions, starting with Dan McClellan. At any rate, Mark, once again, where can people hook up with you?
Yeah, it's easy. You don't even have to remember my name. If you can remember businessesgrow.com, you can find the books we talked about today, including Belonging to the Brand, my podcast, my blog, and all my social connections. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I'll follow you back. I love connecting to people on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to respond to your audience and stay in touch.
Well, and I'm here to tell you, and I'm not blowing smoke. Mark is the real deal. Plenty of crappy books out there. His are not them. I'm
Yeah,
saying
thank you.
always good, thoughtful stuff. And over his shoulder, you can see Marketing Rebellion, which was a fantastic book, as well as Cumulative Advantage. I mean, are you working on anything new, or are you taking a little bit of break now that this book's out?
Taking a little bit of a break, um, when as you're hinting at this, I mean, writing a book for me is intense. I mean, it is not fluff. There is not one page of fluff in any of my books. Every page has an idea, an inspiration, a case study, it just takes an intense amount of concentration and effort and sacrifice, frankly. So when I start a book project, it is not something I do lightly. It's something I need to think about for a long time. It's something I need to be sure about. It's something I need to commit to, 100% and be excited about it. So, I've got a couple little ideas that are spinning around, but nothing really close to an idea for a book yet.
But you do have a blog that people can definitely pay attention to. How can they access that?
Yeah, the blog. I'm excited about the blog. I mean, I think my blog is better than ever. We've had just some really great content, and in April, I'm going to be even taking it up a notch and changing some things on my blog and delivering it in some new ways. And so, yeah, So just go, if you can find businessesgrow.com, that's where you can find everything. And my blog is free. My podcast is free. My books are really cheap. you're getting,
Yeah.
you're getting 2 years of my life for $20. Such a deal.
It is. It really is. And you don't have to be a business to get a ton of great information out of there, especially if you want to put yourself out there into the world as not only a human being, but as what I would call a nonfiction brand, being true to who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Because the bumper sticker on my car, figuratively, is know who you are so you can be it. That's it for this week on the Nonfiction Brand Podcast. I am your host, as always, DP Knudten, and he is
Mark Schaefer.
And I'll be talking at you again next week. Bye-bye. Okay, we are out, but for the live stream, hey, live stream, if anybody's watching, once again, I cannot recommend Mark Schaefer and his books enough. Total quality guy, as I think he demonstrated beautifully through the duration of this interview. Yeah. That's it, Mark. I'm going to go ahead and sign off on the live stream, but you hold on because I would love to say thank you off screen. But that's it for the live stream. So I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.